Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let it go. And you let it go. Staring at the bottom of your past, hoping one day you'll make the dream last. The dreams come slow and they go so fast. You see it when you close your eyes. Maybe one day you'll understand why everything you touch surely dies. But you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let it go. Only know you'll be high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let it go. Staring at the ceiling in the dark, same old empty feeling in your heart. This love comes slow and it goes so far. Why you see it when you fall asleep, but never to touch and never to keep. 'Cause you loved it too much and you dive too deep. Well, you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love.
All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 3-day challenge for personal change from the Changemaker. My name is Chris Welsh. I am hosting live from Dallas, Texas today. I do very much welcome you all for attending. Just a little bit to go over, what we'll go over the next few days. It's, basically a high level of my program for personal change, mashed into 3 days. The first day we'll talk about what your purpose is your meaning, really taking, uncovering what that is, digging deep as far as, finding out, what makes you happy, what drives you, what motivates you, what direction, you really, seeking for your life to be able to go in the long term. With that as well, the next day we'll go into what I call into action. That's really taking, and setting goals, creating timelines as far as what's realistic to you to be able to achieve those, but also to really breaking down the steps of how to make that possible. Is this something realistic? Is this something that you're invested in the outcome and really wanting to make a difference in your life? And then, step 3 is, what that is for as far as creating the sustainability and all of that and the vision and how that all comes into play. So with that, I'll go to give you a little bit of background story on myself, how I got into leading change and stuff like that. Most recently, I worked with one of the largest telecommunication companies in the world. With that, I was in management, leading teams, did a lot of coaching and developing. And one of the biggest things that I liked about my job there was being able to coach and develop my team into success, but also too on a personal level, helping them map out what their dreams and their goals are, whether it be within the organization or outside of the organization, then also too how I could best help them accomplish that. That helped us have a good connection as far as them being invested in them working for me, but also too that I was invested in what their dreams were. As well, going into education wise, I do have an MBA in human resources and also change management. So what I've done is taking a lot of those change management philosophies that we utilize for business and then turning that around, and how that can apply on a personal level. So with what that vision is, what that mission is, what those steps to change entail, what that time process is, over plan, just in case in the long run, methods to change. Well, we've gone through and done is we want to make sure that those efforts are good for the long term. And then a little bit, on my own personal change journey, it started about 10 years ago. And in my early 30s, I didn't have my education yet. I actually dropped out of high school and didn't even get my GED till I was 32 years old. Started off, just kind of like, hey, I wanted my life to be different. I wanted things to change for me. And so with that, I went and I got a 2-year degree from community college. I did that in paralegal studies. Once kind of getting into that field, I didn't really feel that was for me. Going to work and, doing that just wasn't, inspiring to me. I didn't feel like, I felt like, I had more to not just even offer, but I wanted more value. I felt like, I could, achieve more and have something that was more self-satisfying. And in the meantime, I got into human resources and I really like working with other people. And part of my job that I did was a lot of the new hire orientation, but then also to, just kind of the employee engagement aspect. And that led me into, furthering my education and getting a bachelor's degree. And then in the meantime, I started with my most recent company that I was with up until January and worked my way from sales into leadership with them. But, with that, I continued on my education. I kept, going and, wanting more, but also too, having a vision of what I thought, life could look like. A big thing about that though is with, going after those goals and achieving those things is making sure that, we're staying on the right purpose. And then, at times that, when, our goals or where we're at in life is no longer serving us, that we're circling back around, because, things that can be detrimental to, going on and, making changes in life is that if you're identifying your value as far as, those outside goals. And so if you don't accomplish that, if you're not feeling satisfied as far as, just yourself personally, it can be, discouraging because you're letting things outside of yourself define your own value. So with that leads me to where I am now, is just really, having a vision for, having my own coaching and developing business to be able to guide other people, on that change process, what that looks like, and then really having that intrinsic value myself of helping other people accomplish their own dreams and their goals, and wanting to, really have that aha moment for themselves. Another area that was really impactful for me was I did volunteering for Make-A-Wish Foundation, that I was a wish granter. And so I'd go and meet with the kids and their families, and we'd help them uncover what their one true wish was. And a lot of times meeting with those kids, they have a lot of outside influence, whether it be brothers and sisters, friends, or mom and dad wanting to tell them, what they think they should do, what they shouldn't do, whether it be, a trip to Disneyland or a beach, while those all things are very exciting, is that they're really their one true wish that they want to have. And so it's taking time and, asking questions for them to really find out what that aha moment was. A good example of that was one of the kids that I did, his family, was wanting to go to Disney World, and, then one of his brothers wanted to go to the beach. But then after doing some questions, one of his favorite sports was basketball. And his idol was Russell Westbrook and Paul George when they were playing for the Thunder. And so then after kind of circling back around a few times, making connections as far as what his favorite things to do or who his idols were, we were able to get Wish to be able to meet Russell Westbrook and Paul George and meet the Oklahoma City Thunder. So his wish entailed going and practicing with them, going and meeting them on a halftime show. But the perfect moment, I guess, for me on that was when you ask that one question, so is this it? And their eyes light up and they're like, yes. And that's that experience and that journey that I'm hoping to take you on as well, when you finally find that what is that one true thing. Because a lot of times we want to do one thing because it'll make us a lot of money, or we want to do this because it'll make other people happy, but you've got to make your own self happy in the meantime. So with all that being said, I will kind of lead into the presentation that's just ultimately just kind of to guide this conversation along. I'm going to ask like questions as we go. So if y'all could be, as engaged as possible in the chat, when I talk about those things. One of the first things I want to talk about is, ask yourself one question is, what inspired you to show up on this call today? What was it, not so much like, what you're wanting to gain, but also too that, that hope that, hey, is there something better, out there for me? Ask your question, this for yourself, what truly inspired you to show up, today? I'm definitely excited you're here, but this is to help kind of the discovery process for yourself to help uncover what those true meanings and purposes are for yourself. Another thing is, to think about, as we go on this journey, if you could create one thing for yourself, whether it be personally, professionally, or financially in the next year, what would that be? What would that, what would that look like? And it's nice to have those ideas of what you want, but then go a little bit deeper and think about what's your true why behind it. An example of that is Simon Sinek in his book. He talks about, finding your why, but it's also too, a lot of people, when you ask, well, why do you work? Well, to make money. A lot of people want to, make money, but there's also an underlying meaning of, of making money. What's their true purpose? Whether they have a family and it's to get their daughter, dance lessons, or they have a hobby, their extreme sports adventures. That's their true why. That's what gives them purpose. And a lot of times what we do for a living is a means to an end, which, for a lot, there's nothing wrong with that, but also too, when you have that opportunity or really have a map to put into what you're passionate about, into what you do in everyday life, then that's going to give you more purpose and more meaning and more value. And then sometimes for some people, it's not their job. Sometimes it's, a hobby. Sometimes it's who they are for their family. Sometimes it's who they are for, their faith or their, religion. That person who they really want to be, but also to what drives them to, true, happiness, true joy, what helps them to be fulfilled on the inside and not just on the outside by, a car you drive or a job you have or the, school that your kids may attend. So going over to the presentation here, lead that. Let's see here. All right. So again, day 1, meaning and purpose. Day 2 is a vision quest, and day 3 is going to be into action. You heard about my story there. Let's see. So the first part is, today take a step toward my dreams or your dreams in general. Being able to identify and articulate what your dreams are. And a lot of times, what's important about being able to articulate what your dreams are, a lot of times it'll be more wishful thinking. We'll have ideas in our mind, like what we want to do, we hope this will happen. Take the time to take notes, to write them down, whether it be in journal or making an outline. And, also too, keeping in mind, those dreams, just like, can be dynamic. And when I say dynamic, they can be ever changing, just like, us as humans, we're impacted by, our experiences around us, or, things that may change our mind, or we may start in one direction and really uncover, say, hey, that's not really what I thought it would be. And just knowing that it's okay to change those things. But, ultimately is, having, some dreams and realizing that, your dreams, are possible. When you think about, what, your dreams are, don't have a bias to them. Don't have your dreams to make other people happy, because anytime that you're doing something for someone else, those are short-lived. And that's one thing that, I just kind of think about also too, as a leader, when I would lead my employees, a lot of times, people, I have these, one-time motivators and things like that. But once those motivators end, those aren't meaningful and sustainable changes. And so when you follow your dreams, make sure it's something that's fulfilling to you, and that way you will have more inspiration to continue on that path. Also too, each day when you get up, think about what you can do that day to get one step closer to your goal. One of the things is, like, when I get up in the morning, I'm not one person that can totally like hit the ground running. I like to have kind of like that wake up time, but also too, that's because I want to map out my day. I have my dreams and my goals in the direction that I want to go. And so I think, this week, I want to, get this much accomplished. And so today, I'm going to spend, XYZ time, doing this. And I know that will be at least one step closer, to my dreams. And sometimes it's just that time of, taking a step back and having some self-reflection. Say, hey, I need to think about this. I need to put some thought into it. But make sure that you're giving yourself that time to do so. Just because, a lot of times in our days, we get really busy, get sidetracked, in one direction and another, and by the end of the day, you're wiped out. You don't want to deal with it. So rather, you take that time in the morning or at lunch or at the close of your day that you're giving yourself that opportunity to, what I like to think of, self-care for yourself, because those are things that are meaningful and impactful to yourself. Also, too, a big thing is when you're thinking of your dreams and you're taking those steps is, what resources do you need? You've mapped out what you want, but also too, as far as even when you think about, setting goals, what resources are you going to need to accomplish those? Sometimes it can be the time of others. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's knowledge, taking and identifying what the resources are that you need to do to get towards those dreams. And as the tab says on here, this is the self-reflection part. It's important to get those thoughts together. And one of the best things that I have found that works for me is to make sure that I'm writing it down. Make sure I have it down, and so in that way I have my thoughts collected. But also too, when I create that list, I can go back to that list and add notes into it later, and I can cross off too things that are no longer serving to me. Next up, is just the benefits of discovering and living a life of purpose. The biggest thing, living a life of purpose, that kind of go hand in hand with our own happiness, our own mental well-being. With that, that also affects our health, our stress, our relationships with other people, our satisfaction with our job. A lot of times, like when we you have a job that you show up and you literally, from the time you wake up in the morning and going to work, that you absolutely just dread going in, being there, and just count down the minutes to the end of the day. A lot of times it's a job that's it's not serving you. Is that something that's more toxic than than it is good? And I'm definitely not saying go out and quit your job by any means, but also to start, those are identifying markers to start exploring. Say, hey, do I have other options? Are there other things that I could be doing? What can I start considering for myself to think of what's more purposeful for me? Being identifying where your passion lies. And it could be with the same organization or within the same job. And then a lot of times it's perspective. Am I looking at this the right way? Is it sometimes people refer to the glass half full or the half empty measure, but also to make sure that whatever it's filled with does have some purpose and meaning for you, or has an effect on your life that is positive and sustainable. Keep in mind too, when we go through that, with living a life of purpose, our lives do go in stages. So at sometimes we may think that this is my purpose, this is my direction, but 2 years down the road, your viewpoints can change. That can change from interactions with other people. That can change from, just experiences, or just like, you've learned new things. And so that knowledge that you've gained has opened up other doors that you never thought were possible. And so when thinking of that, it's one of the methodology of, in change management and leading change, which is beneficial to personal changes. You're constantly circling back and reevaluating your plan. And kind of like what I did, like in my life's purpose, I went through and I got my first 2-year degree, but I knew, that didn't have to be my path forever. I was glad to have that inspiration when I took that path, because otherwise I may not have started that journey to begin with. So, with that, I realized that, hey, this isn't really the direction I want to go. It's not serving me. So, I took the time to reflect and uncover what, I thought was my passion, what gave me purpose. And, an example of that is, having the degree, in human resources. It wasn't until I got my master's degree that I ever really heard much about change management. And when I was getting my master's degree, I decided to, do change management with HR. I was trying to decide what to do between the two. And I thought they went both hand in hand, but I thought it was, really awesome to be able to, be a leading example in change. And a lot of times, like especially even in business, we'll go through and we'll have times of change, just like right now with the pandemic. this is a huge change in, our lives personally. This is huge change in lives like in businesses. How do leaders lead through that? What's the message, that they, create with that? How do they lead sustainably through there? Just those ideas of, identifying, what the purpose is, and also too, having meaning, in what you do. So back to the PowerPoint here, we do have a few questions on there for self-reflection. It's kind of, it's what kinds of situations, spark your creativity. This has helped to the channel to help identifying what that purpose is. So when you think about things that are exciting, in your own life, what makes you happy? The mountain biking, is it drawing? You get excitement out of going to auto racing or going to football games. Think of things that, really get your mind going, that, get you ramped up, when you think about those things. And a lot of times that, things that give you other ideas to go other directions, that the self-reflection part, discovery part, purpose is to really kind of solidify those concepts that are going in your mind. Like, how do you put them on paper and think of like, hey, is it possible for me to bring this into my reality? Out of those, what are 3 new activities that you would want to try that you haven't done? Think of things that, hey, well, that would be really cool, but I've never had the opportunity. Why not seeking out, making a plan to test those areas out? Is it going to be zip lining? Is it going to could be taking a trip? Are there things in your community that you've always wanted to volunteer on? That can be another avenue for directing and finding purpose. As well, keep on to, why is it important for me to recognize that passion exists inside of me rather than seeking it from external sources? When you think of, the intrinsic and the extrinsic values, extrinsic values are when things you're finding sources from the outside that identify like, your worth. A lot of times that, while extrinsic values are important, a lot of times those are, things like what you get paid for at your job, maybe what kind of car you drive, the neighborhood you live in. Those are things that, that kind of help define your own value, but that give you purpose and goals to work for. But then the intrinsic values are things that give you meaning and purpose on the inside. And a lot of times those are the times that where you've been able to make a positive difference in others, where you've been able to, whether, share your time, your knowledge, those things. But identifying, what are the important things as far as your extrinsic value, extrinsic motivators, but also to identifying what your intrinsic ones are as well. So it's just, that's going to help you separate what your passion is, but also too, it helps you identify, more also goals that you're willing to work towards. Then going on to, 7 ways to discover your life's purpose. A lot of times writing about how you feel. A lot of, people, you hear a lot of people that want to journal and make notes. Journaling is actually, takes a lot of discipline to get yourself to write each day or even once a week about, things that are going on in your life, whether it be, your dreams, your goals, your hopes, hard times, but the purpose of writing it down is it helps you put it down on paper. It's a form of expression without having to really talk about things, with other people if it's, too vulnerable for you to discuss, but it puts your thoughts in order. With that, writing about how you feel, it helps you release those thoughts, but it also can move room for other, feelings and emotions to surface that you didn't know were there. And that's a good way to, for your purpose to come through. When you start, if you're to write on, happiness, what brings you happiness, and, you say, okay, I need to make a list of 20 things that make me happy, you're going to go through that, that process. And when, it's easy to get to 9 or 10, but if you're really having to go to list 20, you're going to have to start digging deep. But then say after you make that list of those 20 things, write out why that is. What's the why behind those make you happy? Not like, oh, this makes me happy, that makes me happy. Going through those activities, you're more, just checking the box, going through the emotions of, yeah, I'm grateful. These things make me happy, but do you know your true why? And that's going to lead you more to, uncovering what that purpose is. Because when you have all those things down on paper, and you look at them, a lot of times you're going to notice a pattern in those things that make you happy. So then if you notice what that pattern may be and then explore it down another avenue as far as, hey, what with this motivator or this intrinsic value can I do that's, going to give me, passion and purpose, just noticing and identifying those patterns. Then also too, taking the step to pursue those passions, after you've identified what your passions or, what those values are, write down what that next step in is, pursuing those passions to be able to identify other areas that you can, as far as for happiness and other targets and goals. Consider your talents. A lot of times our natural talents are things that, are part of our purpose, or that give us meaning because we've invested the time, because we really care about the outcome whenever we go through those areas. A good example is somebody that could be a natural leader, somebody that's good in music, or somebody that's good at art, somebody that has really good social or speaking skills, things that they're passionate about. Like, how can they take that to the next level to be able to do, actions and behaviors in their lives that are more self-fulfilling to them. Another thing to do is, discovering your life purpose is converse with inspiring people. And a lot of times, there are people that inspire us that they don't always have the same, as far as, interest as we may, or we might not have a lot of things in common, but a lot of times we identify markers in them that, inspire us to be better people. So being able to talk with them, and have real conversations, and, and that helps you to uncover, what that connection is, or what you're seeing in them that you might like to see in yourself, or that you already do see in yourself. A lot of times those inspiring people, they don't have to be superstars or, unreachable people. They could be people in your community. They could be relatives. They could be friends, and also too, talk to them about why you believe they are inspiring. A lot of times that's going to solicit, valuable input and feedback from them of, why they are that way and what drives them to act in that manner in areas that you're able to identify and connect with. In other areas, embracing change. With embracing change, a lot of times we resist change because we feel that, we're going to lose, X, Y, Z, not looking at what we're going to gain. And so when we look at, embracing change and going through that, look at, kind of the opportunity cost. Like, so even though you may lose such and such, what is not taking the risk or making the change? What is that really costing you? So whether it be, advancement in your career with not, continuing your education, whether it be not getting involved with your community, what's the social impact of that? And a lot of times we have to look outside ourselves, because the cost may not be directly to us. It could be to our family. It could be to those that we serve. Next is, uphold your values. I think with upholding your values, a lot of people, we know who we are, but they don't really take the time to identify what their values are. For this, I encourage you to make another list, to make a list of what you consider to be your values. Like, what are your top 10 values that you have for yourself as a person, as far as what drives you to act as, your character, who you are, what helps you to make decisions that you make. And then when you go through and you have identified those values, go another step further and kind of go back to that why. Why are these important to you? You being able for you to articulate your why on, how you act the way that you do, the behaviors that you do, the decisions that you make, helps you to, your thoughts are organized on it, but it helps you to, spark your creativity. And when you see things that, are worth striving for, that give you purpose, then that's going to give you more motivators to why you identify as with that and why it's meaningful and impactful to you. The next thing is, following your bliss. I mean, it sounds, okay, well, what is my bliss? So it's, uncovering, back to what gives you purpose, what gives you passion. And, those things those things are ever changing, but what's important to you now is, going through and identifying, like, what makes you happy. Also, too, going back to values, what are things that you value? What are those values that you can contribute back to your family, your community, to yourselves? Consider your talents. A lot of times when we think of being of service to, our family or friends and giving back, a lot of times people are like, it's money this or money that, but money is just such a small fragment when it comes to being of service and being helpful to other people. A lot of times it's going to be just your time. When you can give your time, or say, a skill that you have, that whether it be helping someone do their taxes, mow their lawn, paint their garage, whatever that may be, it's those are the time and the skill. A lot of times when you're able to give back of your time, that's actually more meaningful and impactful to you because it gives you value because you're able to make a difference in someone else's lives. And from what I have found, most of the time, most people's meaning and purpose circles back around to being able to make a difference, a positive difference in the lives around them. And that can be with your family, that can be in your community, sometimes with those that you work with. But being able to make a difference in others definitely always leaves us and helps us feel better about who we are as a person. And it's not just seeking self-satisfaction that I've got to go out and make everybody happy, that you took a genuine interest in making a difference in someone else's life. Sometimes that could be holding a door, sometimes that could just be with a smile for someone else that's having a bad day. But make sure that you're going through and knowing and identifying what gives you meaning and purpose, and and using those talents and abilities back to give back either to your community or make the decisions in the direction of your purpose and what you want to do. One of my favorite things that I like to do was go through, and whenever I led my teams, I would always ask them to challenge themselves whenever they're in interactions with other people. Is kind of mentally to yourself, ask yourself, what value am I adding to this interaction? Knowing that you're not just kind of shooting the stuff or just small talk, but truly thinking about like, hey, this is what I'm able to add to this interaction. But even too, before you go into interactions with other people, whether it be your neighbor or a spouse, think about what you want to accomplish in that interaction. And it's not just self-serving as far as like I need to get my point across, but how can I better serve them? Like how can I add value to that next interaction? It could be with your child that you're going to, hey, they didn't do X, Y, Z, but what can you leave them with value? Like whether it be a value, not just a lesson, but value out of that interaction that they can walk away with it, feel better about that exchange. And that's kind of the direction that I like to go as a person. I like to have that mindset that I can leave people better than I found them. And again, that goes back to, that can be just with a smile, that could just be with a kind word, opening the door. It could be stopping what I'm doing to help them out. But those are things that are meaningful and purpose to me. So with that kind of sums up as far as what we're going to cover today. But it's really just taking that time and finding what your meaning and purpose is. What gives you value. Big key takeaways from that is going through is finding out what makes you happy, what inspires you to act, what drives you as far as how do you feel right now, how do you want to feel. When you think about that, what are goals that you can set in the next 3 to 6 months to 1 year that are going to help you accomplish that? How do those correlate with your passions, things that that are meaningful to you? Identifying activities, events that you like to be a part of. Identifying just things that whether it be downtime or taking your family or friends out. What are things that are fun to you that give you that intrinsic value. Also to consider your talents. Think of things that you like to do, that you do well, and how can you help that to benefit the direction of your life and your purpose, and how you serve yourself and others. Then also to think about talking with people around you, get feedback from them. A lot of times people have an idea of what they believe you'd be good at. A lot of times, they see qualities in you that you may not see for yourself, or that you may not believe for yourself. Identify too what it's going to take to make those changes, to embrace change. What behaviors do you need to change? What are things that you need to let go of? What are things that you need to accomplish? A good idea could be thought patterns. A big thing that a lot of us experiencing, or we call like limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs go through and kind of with that negative self-talk. One of the biggest things that has always worked for me whenever I was leading teams, and also to even just conversing with friends, it's just it's all about mindset. Having this not just like the I think I can mindset, but also too that mindset you're putting positivity into the interaction, positivity into the situation, that you're adding value to that situation. So have that mindset of making a difference. Also, to be true to your values when you make decisions and you make you're setting goals. You ask yourself and be honest. How does this serve me for the person who I want to be, or who I want to become, or the person I want to be for my family? When you think of following your bliss, like if you could not even being limiting like on your beliefs or anything like that, but follow your bliss. Like if you could do 3 things no matter what in the next year, what would they be? And then articulate those whys behind it. Those things, if you had no restrictions, that you could do anything that you could do, those are your purposes and your passions behind that. Because when you let the guards down, you let all that flow, that's when that's all really going to come out. So, but it's about 35 minutes, quite a bit shorter than what I had anticipated it being for us today. But I do hope that you all got a lot out of this, and you'll still be joining me tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll talk more about vision, creating that vision, what that looks like, being able to articulate that, and really being able to conceptualize what that new life for you looks like. So I don't see any questions in there. Margaret Baca did ask if they're able to review the video, and yes, y'all will be able to review the video. I'll have that posted on the Facebook page. If anybody else had any questions, if you want to post those real quick, and I'll hang out for a few more minutes. But then again, otherwise, I look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow and learning more about creating change. Cool. Thank you for joining.